Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us again. If you are joining us again, if you've been to one of our previous sessions, and of course, welcome to those who are joining us for the first time. Today, we are at number 4 in our series, Learning from Liaisons, Evictions, ARP, and more. My name is Alian Anderson, and I am the Policy and Outreach Associate for Schoolhouse Connection, and I'm joined by my fellow co-host, the wonderful Executive Director of Schoolhouse, Mrs. Barbara Duffield. And I am pleased to introduce our wonderful guest today, coming to us all the way from Indiana. We have Mr. James Taylor, who is the Director for Students and Social Services and McKinney-Vento Liaison at the Metropolitan School District of Warren Township in Indiana. And we also have Cherie Gibson, who is coming to us from Indianapolis Public Schools, my bad. She is the McKinney-Vento Liaison and ESSA Foster Care Point of Contact at IPS. And we have one more guest today coming to us from the community side of things, and I'm pleased to have her and introduce her as well. Ms. Anika Cox, who is the lead investigator and supervisor for the Marion County Trustee Office. And before I turn over to our amazing guest today, I just want to do a couple of housekeeping things really quickly. So if you guys check in your GoToWebinar panel under the handouts pane, you will see a document full of wonderful resources for that are eviction prevention and addressing related, and also ARP related resources. And ARP, in case those who don't know, is the American Rescue Plan and refers to the $800 million that was doled out to public schools to specifically address the needs of students experiencing homelessness back in March. So and one other thing, if you guys have questions, which we hope that you do, feel free to also drop those in the questions pane, and we will get to those at different points throughout the presentation. But if you have questions or comments, just feel free to leave them there. And without further ado, we can go to our panelists. So James and Cherie, before we get into everything, I just want to ask you guys if you can tell us a little bit about families who you've been seeing facing eviction and families who are already homeless in your school districts, and just a little bit about how you guys work together in your consortium.
Cherie, you can go ahead because you have the largest school district.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again? My internet literally went out while you were asking a question. Can you ask the question again, please?
No worries, virtual world, we're all still So just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the families that you've been seeing in your school district who are facing eviction and those who are already facing homelessness in your district.
So what we're seeing with our families now, especially right now at this moment, is that we have more families who are just in a bad place. I mean, like, I have families coming in all day yesterday, all day today, where even trying to find them a hotel room, a shelter, all of our shelters are full. I can't find too many organizations that will help families to be immediately housed. So I do have some families that have no choice but to be outside. We've tried so many different ways to house our families. And then we have, with the connection with Warren Township schools and Warren Township Trustee Office and Indy Rent, they have done a wonderful job of working together to assist our families in Warren Township to find rental assistance through, I want to say, the CARES Act dollars. So they've done a wonderful initiative. It was really large, but it was primarily in Warren Township area. IPS touches all of our townships that surround us, including Warren Township. So my students are in their area as well. So it benefited quite a few of our families as well. I'm just trying to find resources for the students. Within our consortium, we have so many different resources that we contract with that we're able to share. So like, for instance, before we started, James and I were discussing, like, I have a family coming in at 4, how I can go over to Warren Township and get fresh produce and fruit and meat for those families. And if they're in a hotel, a motel, a shelter, well, hotel, a motel, we can get those non-perishable food boxes for families as well. So I think it's just navigating and finding out how to find those resources that can help your families immediately, not just 2 or 3 weeks down the line, but immediately right then and there. And I think we're doing a great job here in Indiana. I think we're doing a great job in Indianapolis with that.
Yep. So for me, from a school's perspective, we got together our consortium and we talked about what way can we help our families through the schools. Usually it's the other way around, community, then the schools, but kids spend 75% of their time traveling to and from school. We know who our homeless families are. We know who our families are. We're learning who our families are that need to be diverted. So our trustee office is right down the street from our high school. So we partnered with our trustee office to try to get a better idea of which families are coming to court. Oftentimes, when families go to court, the schools are the last ones to find out, and that should not be the case. We want to be able to help our families on the front end. So we figured if we partnered with the trustee office can help us identify our families before they go to court so that we can actually help our families with homeless diversion programs, whether it's financial literacy, whether it's food and shelter. It's really important that we get in front of the problem. So using a school model and having schools to say, hey, we have 5 of your kids in Warren Township schools. We understand that you're having some difficulty. How can we help you? And that's not normal. It's just not normal. Usually people sit back and wait for people to come to them, and we're not doing it that way. We're using our kids to help our families. I always say at one of our NACI conferences that poverty is not a person, it's a situation. And it's a situation that a person is in, and it's a situation that we find our kids in. And so it is to our advantage as a school system to keep our kids stable and to keep their education consistent. It is a financial liability to us and to the family to have to transport that kid from one side of the Indianapolis back to us, or to lose that family to another school district. So there's a financial cost, but there's an ethical cost also, and the ethical cost outweighs the financial cost. The ethical part of it is, let's keep our kids stable, and that's what McKinney-Vento is supposed to do, and that's what we're doing with our families. So partnering with the trustee office and our courts, it's a no-brainer. However, you have to have the right partnerships to be able to pull something like that off, and we think that we've done that.
That's great. And speaking about your partnerships, I was wondering if you guys can just go ahead and tell us a little bit more about some of the partnerships that you have been leveraging in your community to deal with and confront the eviction crisis, or just anything that you'd like to share.
Yeah, well, why don't we start with the most important one right here. Anika, can you tell them more about what you're doing with your agency?
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to say that it's been great to have the opportunity to connect and be a partner with Moorhead. Most of our parents or people that come in to request assistance from the township have children that attends Warren schools or IPS schools. Either way, they live in the township, but they have these children that are affected. So being able to collab with Moorhead and find out, who has children in the school system and how we can help has just been great. I think our efforts have been great. We're still working on it. It's a continuing thing. We have assistance all year round. So we don't tell people that we've run out of funds. We're not seasonal. According to statute, if they qualify, we have to assist. So we assist with shelter, which is rent or mortgage, utilities, food, that we do not supplement. So if they're already receiving like SNAP benefits, we can't assist with food, but then we can refer them to Sunny Day. We work with Old Bethel, which is a food pantry here in Indianapolis. And so we have the connections. We are the source of the township. So I just think this has just been a great opportunity.
Mm-hmm. So, and to kind of elaborate on what she's saying, we partnered with Eskenazi. It's one of the major hospitals in Indianapolis. We partnered with another neighborhood center called Cafe, and we partnered with the IU School of Social Work with their intern students, and we just partnered with as many people as we could, and they were trained on how to help families navigate the system. Part of the Indy rent is that people were being turned down because they couldn't complete the applications, not because they didn't qualify. So our job was to help them navigate the applications better than they were doing before, and to kind of simplify the process for them. And we think we were able to do that by getting our people trained to sit down with them. And at our resource center, we're a resource center inside of the school system. So the school system runs this resource center. So it's kind of it's a bit different from regular resource centers. So we can do things that cater to our clientele. And I think that we did that. We didn't turn anybody away. They came to a comfortable environment, a welcoming environment. There's a saying, you want to meet the client where the client is at and not make them feel uncomfortable about the situation that they're walking into. So we thought that we're able to do that, and we're going to continue to do that as they delve out more money for year-long assistance. So there's a lot of money out there, but how people get to those access points and how they get the information is the most important part of helping people. So that's the part that we've been working on with our families.
Awesome.
I also say too, on the IPS end, I am partnering with some folks from Teach for America. In Center Township, we have 3,800 kids that have not received the child tax credit. So we're actually going through a training now where we're learning how to go through the IRS and then another website they're creating to help the parents to receive those stimulus payments and the child tax credits as a supplement. So say if we can get them to go through Indy Rent and get some help with rental assistance, then we can get them the past stimulus and child tax credit, which will give them that extra lift that they need to remain stable. So we're working with them as well.
Awesome. Great stuff. And I want to ask if you guys can tell us a little bit more about the training that persons in your school district got in like helping persons to fill out rental assistance, or just like how that came about, like who were the ones who were trained and how that happened and how it's been turning out.
Yeah, we have 17 different schools in our school district. IPS has 1 million schools in their school district, but we took our parent liaisons and we trained all of our parent liaisons to come in to be able to work with the families. So not only did we train our parent liaisons, we had other volunteers to come in to do that. I think the training was 45 minutes worth of training to fill out the form that has been modified because they realized that the form had different things in it that most older people didn't know how to navigate. So when you start talking about navigating, uploading information, downloading information, do you have all these forms? We ask you to come and then we tell you got to go back home and get all of these forms because the older people can't upload their forms. They don't know what upload means. So sometimes a 15-minute process can turn into 2 hours because they just don't know how to do it. So the people that were helping our families were all trained in 45 minutes to an hour, and it was the best 45-minute training that I've ever seen. So, and we do food drives, we do book bag giveaways, but we did 3 days worth of rental assistance in a row, and that was the best distribution of drive of help that we've ever done because we saved people from moving and we saved their homes where they can stay with their families. So I felt really good about, and I feel good about what we're doing.
And how did you guys go about getting the word out to families that rental assistance was available or that this was something for them to even look into?
Well, I mean, when you service, how many kids do you have in your school system, Sheree? How many kids?
McKinney-Vento total.
Total.
30,000.
30,000. We have over 15,000, something like that. We pushed it out on phones. We have a phone master, and every other day, phone calls go out to our families, just letting our families know what's available. We use social media. We use the radio stations. But what gave us a big push was the media, the news stations. The news stations came out and they covered it on all of our local networks. And once they did that, people came from all over seeking help. So sometimes getting people to come and do the right thing is about, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. They're not sure, they don't have transportation, they're scared, they're nervous. I mean, so you have to appeal to their emotions, and you have to appeal to other people that may know them to get them to come out. And we still don't think that we got all the people out that we like to get out. So we're going to do it again, and we're going to keep doing it again. And we're going to build systems within systems. Like Anika, she's going to continue to see people daily at her place, and she's going to make referrals back to the schools. The whole purpose of all of this was for the schools to be involved, so that when they go to the trustee office, Anika can now alert the parents or alert the schools with the parents' permission for us to contact them, so that we can ask them, how can we help you? And that's the ultimate question. How can we help you?
Absolutely. I wish we could do a mic drop there. But so going back to the trustee office and like your relationship and your wonderful partnership, how did that come about? Was it the schools who reached out to the trustee office, or vice versa? How did that, like, I'm sure everyone here would love to know how exactly they can go about trying to foster a similar partnership in their communities.
Well,
And let me just one piece too, because I'm realizing we got a national audience, and so trustee office may be a new phrase that. So if you could also just back up a little bit about what is a trustee office, and then add on to that, that'd be great.
Anika, if you can talk about what a trustee office is.
Okay, trustee office is ran by an elected official, and is basically to provide assistance to the township's residents. So each township has their own township trustee, and is ran by a separate elected official for each. And we provide assistance to families in need, basically on when they have an unpredictable circumstance or an emergency situation. And we provide assistance for shelter, food, water, lights, and fuel for heating and cooking. We also do we provide funding for indigent burials to some of the funeral homes.
Okay, so let me give the audience the recipe for gathering stakeholders and gathering resources. You have resources on 3 different levels. The first resource that most people don't even look at are grassroots organizations. If you know of any mom and pop organizations that contract with the Department of Children's Services and other local providers, you want to try to connect with them, because they get grants and they get funding from foundations and other resources. Let's say, for instance, Barbara, in your area, the Kellogg Foundation, you know, they have all types of grants. We have the Lilly Foundation here. You have Upjohn in the Michigan area. So all of these different agencies, they give money to grassroots organizations to help fund, they call them barrier busters, to help fund indigent and marginalized populations and communities. They try to spread their money around so that the money is being used for what they intended for it to be used for. So that's grassroots. We found that the grassroots organizations are probably the most effective. Number 2, community level organizations. These are organizations that run off of grants also, but they're a little bit larger. These are some of your health centers. These are some other local agencies, like we have an organization called NACS, or Community Partners. It's a subsidiary to DCS, but they're their own organization. So they do a lot of work in clinics around the city also, depending on where you're at. Then you have corporate organizations. These are your major healthcare, mental health, public organizations that provide services and funding to families. it is really important that you do some, you do what we call resource navigation, and you divide up those organizations that are community, those that are local, and those that are grassroots, and those that are corporate, because they have different sliding fee scales. They have different, some things are free, some things aren't free. So you need to know what you can get a hold of that can help your community. So, but that's as simple as I can put it. Know the dichotomy of your demographics so that you can serve your demographics better. Aline, that's strictly from a policy perspective. If you understand what's out there from a policy perspective, then you're able to help people on a micro level instead of a macro level. So it all starts at the micro level and from a policy perspective.
Such great advice. Thank you so much. And Cherie, did you have anything to add? Because I saw you nodding in agreement.
I do that a lot. I was actually agreeing with what James was saying. I think that, you know, and the only thought that I really had was, I really love the fact that we have to be in the consortium, right? The fact that they want us to all play together on the playground together, and then we're sharing these resources because our kids go in and out of our districts, each other's districts. So we're sharing these resources, and I think it's so exciting to me because what I don't have, Warren Township has. What Warren Township may not have, IPS may have, but we're able to share resources with each other. And, you know, I think that's coming from being formerly homeless before a pandemic. I can only imagine what it's like now during the pandemic and how hard it is. It's to keep the thought in your head that it is literally more expensive for parents to be homeless now than it is for them to be sheltered. So to have these resources where we can help parents out at any time, I think is just awesome. I'm so excited, and I continue to be excited about it every day.
Right. So for those people in the audience that believe that they are having trouble finding resources, I felt the same way, but after careful study, the pot of gold is at the end of the rainbow. The pot of gold is there. You just have to find that pot of gold in the community that you serve. There are a lot of agencies that are giving money and support to people. You just got to find those agencies and ask for their support. In so many words, you have to interject yourself into that agency. So for instance, we have what we call regional council meetings, and they're through the Department of Children's Services. Now, the Department of Children's Services has what they call prevention funds. Most people believe that DCS just takes kids out of the home, places kids in foster care, but there's a prevention part to DCS also, to where their goal is to distribute money to providers in the community as an extension of their corporate service to help the grassroots organizations, help the grassroots families. And until you find those resources, you're always going to be at the mercy of the corporate organizations, number one, because every corporate organization, I'm not going to say they don't have good intentions, but they can't do some of the things that smaller organizations could do because of policy and bureaucratic stuff. So you got to find the organizations that you can work with that can get you what you need in a timely manner.
Great. And we just have a question in the chat box now for you. So the question is, do you have MOUs with these agencies to provide a letter of support, or is it a verbal agreement? So if you could describe kind of how it's formalized, what mechanisms you use, that'd be great.
Yeah, now some of the organizations that you work with, you just work with, they're there in the community, you don't need an MOU. But for us in our consortium, we have to have an MOU with every organization that we partner with. Some of the organizations we pay from ARP dollars, from McKinney-Vento dollars. So we do a contract with them, they provide services, we pay out that money to them so that they can reach more of our kids. So the goal of the consortium is to find as many organizations as you can that do things a lot different so that they can service our families a lot better. And we, Cherie and myself, we can't do it by ourselves, but if we reach out into the community and let these community providers go out and touch someone, yeah, we can do a lot more with them. So we go from year to year on our contracts, and we specifically write in those contracts what they're supposed to do for us. And in return, you know, we try to compensate them for their efforts, if we can.
Okay, great. So I know that you mentioned the American Rescue Plan just a while ago, so I think that's a wonderful segue into our next question. Just hearing from you guys some of the plans that you have for your American Rescue Plan at homeless children and youth dollars, like any innovative ideas or continuations of previously embarked upon projects that you guys have for these dollars that you can share with the folks on the call.
Well, thank you, Elaine. Mr. Anderson, thank you for asking. Let me tell you about some things. So with those dollars, we plan on extending our outreach to families that are in hotels. We often do food drives, and we assume that the people can get there on their own. We have bus passes, we have other types of transportation, but it's nothing like taking the food right to the people. So between IPS and us, with our pantry, with our dollars, we're going to extend what we do and transport that food directly to our families through ARP. So IPS have a plethora of hotels in their area. We have a plethora of hotels in our area. So that's one thing that we're going to do to accommodate our families. The other thing that we're going to do, and this is through the trustee office and also through Eskenazi, we're going to do a diversion program for housing. So we're going to make sure that we identify those families ahead of time before they get evicted, so that we can provide some type of financial literacy and assistance to those families. And that money never comes straight through the schools. It has to go through a different organization that represents community work and works in the area of helping families find shelter. So with that being said, our partnership with the trustee office, with Eskenazi, with the housing department, those partnerships are really important as we try to help our families. Schools are in the business of educating and kind of breaking down some of those barriers that our families face. And by us having those resources, we can help to alleviate some homelessness before they actually become homeless. So that's very important also. Those are just two things. The other big thing that we're going to work on is attendance. Attendance is horrible across the country. So what we've done is we created an attendance summit, whereby we brought in international researchers to talk about evidence-based models centered around attendance. So compulsory attendance laws are the oldest laws out there on the books known to man. So what we said about attendance is that most school districts around the country must unlearn what you already know about policies and practices centering around attendance. Most attendance in most states criminalize kids and their families. We are not trying to go after a family to put them in jail because they're truant, they're indigent, they're marginalized. That is the last thing that we want to do. So we want to have an innovative approach as to how we try to re-engage kids back into school. And that innovative approach comes along with a trauma-informed care plan that we will institute in training amongst all of our staff to help them better understand the new language for truancy. You must unlearn what you've already learned, so in order to learn some new things. And that's what we're trying to do around the country. I've learned a lot just within the past 6 months about kids who are what we call chronically absent. There are some new words that we like to use. School refusal is one of those words. That's when a kid doesn't want to come to school because he or she is experiencing some psychosomatic issues, anxiety, or different things like that. That's not a kid who's skipping school because they want to skip school. So why would you send that kid a dirty letter from the prosecutor's office saying that you're going to arrest their parents? That's not the thing to do. The last time that I did that, I went to go visit a family that I sent a dirty letter to, and I had to apologize to that family because that family had lost their job. They were in a hotel room with one bed with 5 kids. So who am I to say you're truant, your kids are truant, and I'm going to take you to jail? That's not right. So we have to reteach some things to our staff as far as their best practices on how they deal with our families in the communities about attendance. So that's a huge one that we're dealing with.
I'll say for, sorry, Jen.
Go ahead.
So I'll say on a more individual level with IPS, we've done two initiatives. At the end of last school year, we did Finish Strong, and then the beginning of this school year, we did what's called Start Strong. So with the McKinney-Vento department, it's kind of like we're trying to use some of those ARP dollars to do the same thing. So similar to what James was talking about, but targeting those McKinney-Vento kids who are in hotels and motels. We're really targeting those kids who we have not seen, we haven't gotten transcript requests for. Where are these kids at? Why are they not attending school? And we literally found we have a lot of our teenagers, which across the country, quite a few of you may have found that a lot of our teenagers are not going to school, they're working. They're not in school. They are going to work during school hours. So we want to use some of those dollars to actually go out and find our children, and then also use those dollars for extensive tutoring as well for our McKinney-Vento students who have those high attendance issues, those low I-STEP scores. We want to use those dollars to get them that extra tutoring supports they need. So with the Finish Strong and Start Strong initiative, we even if at the end of the last school year, even if you were a student in the 10th grade who was didn't have enough credits to go to your junior year the next year, we implemented a 9-week program in which that student could come back and in 9 weeks catch up to where when the new year starts, they're able to go on into their correct grade with a right amount of credits. So again, with the McKinney-Vento program, we're trying to do the exact same thing along the same lines to try to get them to come back. It kind of, when we went out and we actually knocked on doors, we went out in teams and knocked on doors, and gave us that chance to see parents one-on-one that we hadn't seen in so long. So we were able to talk to parents and get a feel for what, like James said, what they're going through, what they're experiencing, what they want for their kids' education, what the student wants for their education, especially our high schoolers. So just to be able to go out and actually find those kids and bring them back and give them that initiative where, no, you don't have to wait until May at the end of the school year for us to say you can continue on. You're going to do this 9-week program and we're going to get you back on track so that you can concentrate and be where you're supposed to be.
Great stuff. And before we continue, I'll just jump to a question that we actually got. And I will mention that you guys are also getting commendations of people saying that you're an awesome team. But we have a question from someone asking if you had to start and build a consortium on your own, or was it inherited? And if you did have to start it, what was the first step that you guys had to take?
Well, let me tell you, we were forced to join the consortium. We were voluntold. It wasn't a good idea. We know it was done in other places around the country, and we were not sold. But you know, because hindsight is 2020, I think if you had to build it all over again, we did it the right way. We partnered with people that we were comfortable with. So it wasn't, our consortium was not built on demographics. Your school district is by my school district. It was built on relationships. So to me, relationships is everything. Relationships makes things go. Relationships is the key to navigating resources. So going back to the resource piece and the consortium piece, if I didn't have the relationships with all of the key people at a lot of agencies, we wouldn't have those resources. So we keep resources in our back pocket. If you're a good social worker, you keep resources in your back pocket so that if you need it, they're like your ace in the hole. So for instance, like I use Anika Cox. When I need Anika, I can call her and say, hey, Anika, I got this family. We need this, we need that. Based on our relationship, Anika will accommodate me. So, or when I have all the shelters that are full, and I can call somebody up, the director of the shelter, and say, hey, I really need a favor. That's the whole purpose of relationships. So our consortium, I partnered with Cherie because number one, she was the largest school district in the state. And number two, that meant that she got more money than anybody else. Okay, so I want to go where the money's at. So, and that's what I did. So, and then we brought other people in on different sides of the town so that we can have every area covered in Indianapolis. And from there, every consortium, from my perspective, needs a philosophical base. Okay, if your consortium does not have a philosophy or a way of doing things, then you're just a group of people who are together. You are a collection of people. You are a kaleidoscope of people. You are all the adjectives that you can use to describe it, but with no action, okay? The mission of our consortium is resource-based, resource-driven to guide people and to send people to resources. We're like the old 1970s gas station. And back in the day, used to call it a filling station. Aline, you may be too young to know what that is. Barbara may know what it is. No disrespect. I'm talking seasoned people here. So all you seasoned people in the audience, if you know what a filling station is, raise your hand. All right. Okay. So ask yourself the question, when you pulled up at that filling station, what type of service did you get? You got your gas pump, you got your windows washed, they checked your oil, and they checked the air pressure in your tires. We want our services to be a one-stop shop for our families, and we want it to be friendly. So you may come in asking for one thing, but we're going to give you more than what you've asked for. So that's what a consortium should be, not just a group of people. And everybody in our consortium gets along with each other, because if we didn't get along, I would put them out. I'm just saying, you got to go. So that's what a consortium is to me. And that's how we got together.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And while we wait to see, I just want to remind everyone that you can drop questions in the Q&A pane. And while we wait to see if there are any other questions that come in, James, Shari, Anika, I just want to ask you all if there is anything in particular that wasn't covered already, when there was a lot of stuff covered for sure, that you guys would just love to impart on everyone here today. Maybe if there's one thing that you'd like them to know or take back into their communities, what would it be?
I'd say just care, empathy. That's how simple this is. That's how simple it is. Our jobs are not, we don't get paid a lot. You know, it's not one of those jobs that's big and glamorous. You know, we're dealing with our most vulnerable population. And the only thing that I can honestly say, and it's just like Jane said before, that empathy, actually caring, knowing what your families are going through. If you can't have sympathy because you haven't through it, see, I'm one that can have sympathy, right? Because I've been through it. But a lot of people that do this job can't have sympathy, but you can have empathy. Take the time out to listen. Take the time out to research for your family, because, you know, although we have all of these wonderful resources and your family may come in and say, yes, we've called this person, we've called this place, we've called this company, they're still looking at you for answers. They're looking at you to let them know what it is that they can do, where they can go, and immediately. And they don't want to talk to you if you don't have that heart, if you don't have that empathy for them. They won't talk to you, they won't open up to you, and that means you won't be able to provide those resources they need, because they're not going to open up to you. You don't know what they need because they're angry. And don't take on their anger. I always tell people when I train, don't take anger on personally. You know, homeless families are upset at everything all the time because of the situation that they're in. That is a very frustrating situation. Not having a roof is highly frustrating. And then you got these kids that you're, you know, kind of, as I used to say, dragging through the mud with me. So, you know, you really want to just keep in mind that everybody has a story. Not all families are the same. And just have that empathy and that compassion for our families. They really need that right now. And it goes such a long way. That empathy, I have parents that I've been doing this job for about 9 years. And I have families from 9 years ago who are stable and come back just to say hi and just to let me know that they remember that I was passionate towards them and I was empathetic towards their situation. So parents are opened up more if, you know, you catch more bees with honey, that old saying, you know, but that's the best advice I can give, is to just be empathetic.
You have to care about people. You know, we have this thing that we say, we have the small claims court, we have us, the trustee, in our building. And everybody that walks through that door is going through something. They're distraught. Their lights are getting ready to be turned off. They're facing eviction, and they are going through something. And so we have this thing where we have to treat everybody kindly, you know, because you just don't know what a person is going through. And even so, all the time we can't help, but I have people give me a hug, just because if I couldn't help, I made sure I provided some sort of resource for them to go to. You know, I'm sorry we couldn't help today, but try this place, you know, so caring about people is important.
I'll go ahead and conclude by saying Dr. Nell Noddings, N-E-L-N-O-D-D-I-N-G-S, talked about caring in the educational system. She approached it from a feminist perspective. She actually talked about caring in the form of empathy, and she also said that you have to have some sympathy. The feminist perspective talks about having sympathy along with empathy so that you can place yourself in the shoes of others. Dr. Nodding said this. She said, when you care for somebody, you actually have a reciprocal nature of sharing and caring. You put yourself in their shoes and you'll go above and beyond to show there's a connection somewhere along the way. Like Cherie said, she made a connection with a family and it lasted 9 years. That's caring for somebody. Now, caring about somebody is a whole different animal. There are starving kids in Africa. I give $20 a month. I just showed that I care about. I didn't make that commitment to say that I care for, but I do affirm the fact that I care about. So when you care for, remember this, there's a natural connection with the person that you're working with. And it starts an ongoing relationship of reciprocity. When you care about, it doesn't mean that you can't get to caring for, it just means that it's not a priority. So everything that we do, we try to care for our people. And remember this, you have to have a theoretical base. And our theoretical base or our philosophical base is that we're going to do everything that we can for you, therefore we care for you.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. So we have one last question that I want to throw out to all of you. So there's always a concern about confidentiality whenever you are partnering with community agencies. So do you guys encounter this problem? And if so, how do you deal with that? How do you work with that?
Well, you know, school systems, let me categorize this. So write this down, everybody. 3 systems. And if all of you all went to school for social work, you understand what systems theory is. And you understand that if one system fails, if one thing fails in one system, that there's a trickle down effect that it may affect the other systems. So the systems that we operate in, 1, school system, totally different language. We speak our own language, we have our own kids, we have our own families. 2, juvenile justice system, which a lot of our McKinney-Vento kids and a lot of our families are in. Then you have the community system as a whole. That's the system that Anika works in and things like that. So we're working on, insofar as the state of Indiana, to do some data sharing to where we can communicate with one another across systems. We got a new system coming out that our Department of Education just introduced called HIMS. So we're looking to share with DOE, we're looking to share with the juvenile justice agencies, and we're looking to share with DCS. Those are 3 of the main agencies that we're looking to share with, but they're still working out some of the kinks. Mostly everything that you do now is based on the need to know, number 1, and based upon informed consent. So we're just going to have to rely on when you go to counseling, when you go to all of these other places you go, that you feel that informed consent form out until all of the major agencies can get together and the legislation allows us to share data in a way in which we could be more effective in prevention. We have to be more effective from a universal standpoint. When we talk about the tiered model, we don't do as much at the universal level that we should. We're always operating from tier 3. And tier 3 is the crisis tier, okay? So we want to make sure that we're doing the same thing for everybody to teach kids and parents, whether it's financial literacy, whether it's housing workshops, whether it's schooling. We want to work on the universal model. And when the universal model fails, we know how to matriculate up the ladder and have services in place to go all the way to tier 3. Most school systems operate from what we call positive behavior interventions. So we understand the tiered model. DCS operates from that, a different framework. And the juvenile justice agencies, depending on the state that you're in, Lord help them. I don't know what model they're working on. So.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Oh, Sherry, did you want to say something? If not, that's okay. But it kind of looked like your mouth was moving. So I want to make sure I'm giving you a chance.
No, no, no. No, I don't want to say anything. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Well, thank you all, James, Anika, Cherie. Thank you all so much for joining us and for imparting such amazing knowledge and words of wisdom, and just words for everyone to keep in mind as they continue in their positions. We actually got a comment in the panel saying the dedication and experience of this in the question panel, the dedication and experience of this panel is very motivating. Thank you for bringing them to us. So just to know how impactful you guys were today. Thank you so much again. And to all of our amazing attendees, thank you so much for joining us and for sticking to the end of it. If you missed a part or if you know someone who had to hop off, we are going to be sending out an archive of the webinar, so you'll be able to access it again through your email and also on the Schoolhouse Connection website, www.schoolhouseconnection.org. And yeah. And once again, you will also find a handout with resources in your handouts panel, which will also be sent to you and available online. But thank you all so much again for joining us, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
We love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.